Ooh, I get the gavel.
You get the gavel.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. All right, are we in compliance with the open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Oh, good. Public comment during this portion of the agenda will be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If there's no public here, do we have to do all that?
Yes.
You have to
But
do
could I
all that.
take roll first, please?
Oh,
Thank you.
we didn't say that.
Member McMillan Arnold,
Present.
Member Plank,
Present.
Member Levine,
Present.
Member Shafas is currently excused. We do have a quorum. Thank you.
All right. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, please come to the microphone and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. The public is also welcome to make any comments as each item is being heard by the board. All right. So move on to no public. So move on to number 4, which is the purpose of why we're here today. HPC 68931. Discussion for possible action regarding Historic Preservation Commission notification regarding pending demolitions of historic properties and/or amendments to the City of Las Vegas Unified Development Code, Chapter 19.10.150, and/or Commission bylaws as amended September 25th, 2013, regarding the Historic Preservation Commission powers. All wards are included. All right, so here we are, gang. What we were charged with, the topic was brought up for us to try to figure out if there is some means or methods or what we would want to have happen that would allow us to be notified of pending demolitions of buildings at some age, which could be we can determine here. And how much notice we need and what we can do about it, and if there's anything that can be done.
Chair, if I may, I would just like to, before we begin, just go over briefly what the current powers are so that we are on the same page.
Okay, good idea.
And one quick housekeeping item. We are feeding you, so we do have some lunch. The clerk's office was kind enough to store it in the fridge for you, and so as the meeting wraps up, once the meeting wraps up, we'll bring the food out. So just giving you a heads up. You're not obligated to eat it.
Is that an incentive for a quick meeting then?
Yeah.
That and the Del VR thing down in the driveway, in the parking lot.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, it's up to you guys. Okay. So, just very quickly, what the commission currently has the power to review are decisions concerning applications for new construction, alteration, demolition, or removal of any element associated with an historic landmark, district, site, building, structure, and object. And that means that is a resource that is designated on the City of Las Vegas local historic property register, not the state register, not the national register. So the commission only has powers of review over those buildings that are designated on the local register. Per the bylaws, the commission has the power to review and make decisions in accordance with the Unified Development Code of the City of Las Vegas, appropriate action regarding applications for proposed new construction, alteration, demolition, or removal of any element associated with, again, historic landmark, district, site, building, structure, or object, and review demolition permits requested by property owners for structures designated on the City of Las Vegas Historic Property Register. Such review process shall be used to encourage the property owner to pursue preservation alternatives. However, no such review process shall require a delay of more than 60 days in the issuance of a demolition permit. So that means that the commission has the power to delay a demolition of a property that is listed on the local historic property register, not the state or the national register, for no more than 60 days. So currently, that power is in the current bylaws for the commission.
Courtney,
yes.
At what point does that start?
That would probably begin, it says, probably upon the request of the property owner. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Once the request is submitted?
Right, so this section XP of the commission bylaws, if you look at the code provision what this really is kind of a standard condition that this commission decided to use when discussing demolitions, right? So there's a provision in here.
In the bylaws, or?
No, there's a provision in the code. If you go to the code, sorry, then you go to the demolition section.
If you don't have it, I can bring it up.
It says, what is it? Okay,
What section is it?
I'm getting there. I just
Did
gotta
you
make sure
pass
I have
demolition and removal?
L.
L.
L, 1, 2. Okay, so if you go to page, it's page 297 of the Title 19. It's chapter 19, 10, 150 L is where demolition and removal starts. So if you look at 1, it talks about in the case of proposed work which in the HPO's judgment is minor in nature, the HPO shall be the approval authority. That's Courtney, right? And then this is the approval authority as Courtney explained it to you. If you go, but if you with regard to XP and the bylaws, if you look at L,
What page are you on?
What?
I'm at it's 150 L. What page of the agenda?
No,
No.
what page of the bylaw?
Title 19.
Oh, I'm actually Title 19, page 298.
298.
And that's 298 in the March 16th, 2011 UDC.
And Jim, I would also add on the first sentence of that L, it says whenever it's proposed to demo or new structure, the applicant must first obtain the approval of the HBC.
Right. So, you have it up here? Okay, so here she's got it
It's
up.
also on this.
Okay.
I know it's hard to see.
Let me move over and we can all look at the screen. Okay.
And it's under powers.
So, page 298, right? Did you find it? L, oh, now this is 301. No. This is a little bit different. Can you scroll down, Courtney?
I'm sorry?
Can we scroll down?
Yeah. In just a second. Sorry, I have to get past.
So if we scroll down to the end of this page, L5,
Okay.
this XP in the bylaws appears to me to be a standard, the standard practice for what this is, this L5. The approval authority may approve, conditionally approve, or deny an application or continue consideration thereof for further study. The HPO shall provide the applicant with notice of action taken along with explanation of any reasons therefore and conditions attached thereto. And so if you look at HP, it says with regard to demolition, you're going to review demolition permits requested by property owners for structures designated on the city's historic property register. And then the review process itself shall be used to encourage a property owner to pursue alternatives, for preservation alternatives as opposed to demolition. And it says no such review process shall require a delay of more than 60 days. So how it works right now is you get on things on the local register, you're going to get an application because they've got to come to the HPC to get approval before demolition. Okay?
Before the demolition starts, or before they can go get a demolition permit?
Before the permit is even approved.
Yeah, before, yeah. They've got to get approval from you to get the permit from our building department.
Okay, my question is, how do they know that they need to come to us first?
No, it's just, they don't, I
Okay.
suppose,
That's
right? I
what
mean,
I
that's
want to know.
that's one of the issues that a government zoning authority has on a daily basis. People that we govern don't always understand before that they put a patio cover on. It's possible they've got to come down and get a permit from the city.
Okay, do they have to?
Or before replacing an electrical socket, they've got to get a permit from the city.
Okay.
There are some, we do have struggles of that nature daily.
So they need to get a permit from the city before they can demolish.
Right.
So if they come to the city for a permit and the city understands that the property is 45, how old do we look at property? Have we established timeline on property?
If it's on the register, not if it's 45 years old.
Okay,
If
so if it's on the register now, if it's on the register, then the city would refer them to us. That appears to be the process.
Yeah, so you, most often, so when we're talking about practicality, you jump in here, Courtney, but practically speaking, someone's gonna demolish a good portion of a structure that's on the local register, they're gonna have a contractor do it, right? Contractors understand that permits are required. Somewhat. They come down to the city, they ask for the permit. The permit then the permit is denied until such time as they go see Courtney.
Correct.
Courtney would then tell them, okay, you're on the, look it up, you're on the local register. Code says you've got to go to the HPC first. We get an application, okay? That application is then processed by the city and put on an agenda for the HPC consideration. That's where this comes in, this kind of standard that the commission approved when it approved these new bylaws, which is we're going to make a point to ask the person with the structure on our local register to pursue some alternatives to demolition prior to approving that permit, right? But it limits this entire process to no more than a 60-day delay. If we had this permit come in, so I'm finally getting to your answer, I'm sorry it took so long to make the circle. But the permit comes in, they come before you. You really want them to pursue some alternative to demolition. At that point, I think it's fair to say that we better not have more than a 60-day delay between the day they come in and talk to you at the meeting and a permit being issued, if that's what you choose to do. You could just go ahead and deny the permit, right? If you have grounds to deny the permit, you deny the demolition permit. But if really what you're interested in doing is taking some time off of their schedule to discuss with them reasonable alternatives, this XP gives you the chance to do that.
But we only have 60 days. We have to do it within a 60-day period at this time, is what you're saying.
Again, is it 60 days from the time they come before the commission?
Yeah, when does that clock
I
start?
think that's look, I'm giving you what I think the case probably is. This is your rule. The first time that you see them is when they appear before you on the commission.
Right.
I don't at the commission. I'm not so sure that we could say that you would say, well, let's pursue some alternatives. We're going to table this until our next meeting, usually about 30 days, right? I want you to go and talk to Courtney about other things you might be able to do. Or I want you to go hire yourself a preservation architect to figure out what you can do other than demolishing the structure. The point here is that you've got a rule that says you shouldn't delay the issuance of that demolition permit if you're going to do so for more than 60 days. Could we count it from the day that the permit was issued? I mean, the application was filed? I suppose we could. I think we would probably say if this happens, that it's 60 days from the time you first get to take action.
The commission,
Yes. I think
that
that's
would
the
be a
most
bylaw
reasonable reading
change.
of this, because it doesn't say, right?
But-
It's unclear.
But that
Be
should
more
be a bylaw
specific.
change that we're recommending, right, to clarify that?
It could be, yeah, you could clarify that.
Yeah.
See, here's the deal, I have a feeling this was put in here because there was some concern that on the commission's part, and Courtney was part of this process, she certainly knows better than I'm speculating there must have been some concern that there might be, instead of denial, there might just be some serial continuances, and that's, that acts like a denial, but isn't fair to the person coming in from the permit, because then they've got nowhere to go. If you just hold them up with this review forever, they can't get to the appeal procedure. So I think that's why you guys probably put a 60-day cap on there. So to answer your question, you could amend section XP. You could strike it. I don't know that you want to strike it, right? Or you could change it some.
Hey, could we
Further
change it to
define it.
90 days? I'm sorry. Could we change it to 90 days?
That's
Which would give us, and the people who are applying for the demolition certificate, my question too is who are applying for that certificate, and we say, well, you have to go to Courtney to get an architecture review or whatever, to see what you can do with that property. You have to give these people time to get those people and those people time to do what they have to do. And all of that's not going to happen in 60 days.
well, the question you have, I think the question you have for yourselves is, because let's think through the process. Someone comes with an application for demolition, right? It's on the local register. We don't have very many of those, right, Courtney? I mean, how many do we have?
Including the neighborhoods, we have over
Like
400.
400, okay.
Yeah.
So somebody comes in with a demolition permit on one of the houses on the local register, right?
Right.
The question is, practically, is this one that you might deny altogether, right? Okay, they want to knock a house down and build a McMansion in Beverly Green, right? I'm just, right?
right.
Okay.
Okay, that's the, so, you review it. Now, if you look at our code, it comes to you, there's a review procedure. You've got this section XP. This really just outlines how you're going to act if you're not going to deny it, right? So if you have reasons to deny the demolition, you do that, right? If you want to suggest alternatives to demolition, then this is basically saying in lay terms, you really can't continue it more than 2 meetings, right? You've put that limit upon yourself, 60 days. You go out, you talk with people about what you want to do. Well, the guy then said, or the gal says, you know what, I bought the property to knock the thing down. So I'm not really interested in any alternatives. I either want to knock it down or I don't. So I'll take the denial and I'll go to city council. You know what I mean? That's kind of, so the question is, how long a period do you want to give yourselves to keep pushing this demolition application? That's what it seems to me.
Okay,
Could-
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Courtney, in this whole process, a person goes in for a demo permit. It gets kicked to you. And whether it's 90 days, 180 days, whatever, if we deny it, so what?
Then they have the opportunity to appeal to council.
So basically, we have the ability then to deny a building permit? Based on-
Well,
And I guess I would question.
You always have that. You've always had that
Do
power.
we have that power?
With certificates of appropriateness, the people come in for building permits to make revisions to their locally designated properties, and the commission has the authority to recommend denial for that project. And at that point, and has happened in the past, the commission says, we would like to explore alternatives, can you come back, next month with, some revisions? Or you can approve it with some conditions that are decided upon at that meeting. So you have some options, but if the commission outright denies that application for a certificate of appropriateness, that individual then has the opportunity to appeal it to council. So you've always had that authority.
Let me read from 150L, and this is 8. Maybe you can just go down to the next. If an application for demolition or removal is denied by the HPC, city may deny a permit for such activity for up to 180 days from the date on which the application was denied. It is unlawful to demolish or remove a structure or feature which is subject to this subsection now without a permit to do so under this section and other applicable ordinances. During the period of restraint or removal, HPC and HPO will endeavor to secure whatever assistance may be feasible to effect the preservation of the landmark district site building structure, including economic assistance, acquisition, purchase of preservation easement, location of a buyer. If the HPC or HPO is unable to secure such assistance within the period of restraint, the proposed demolition or removal will be allowed subject to the issuance of appropriate permits by the building official. So, what this is saying is you can deny it. It appears what it says is that if it's denied, we've got now 6 months time to figure. We have 6 months time to figure out if there's something that can be done, and if not, once that 6 month period lapses, available to the owner is a demolition permit. At the same time, Courtney's right. If there was a denial, there is an appeal to the city council available.
After the 6 months or after immediately?
Immediately?
Yeah, they would appeal immediately. Okay, my question is then, if you would deny something, when you deny it, you have to have reasons, valid reasons for denial. It's historic, okay? So we're denying it, and so then we give the person the alternative to seek other alternatives, or do we assist them in seeking other alternatives? I know in reading some of these, they make the people who are seeking the demolition pay for their own alternatives to seek, or either we seek and offer alternatives. And is that what happens?
The commission, it's part of their, it's in the code. I can't recall the exact section right now, but to provide technical assistance to property owners.
Okay.
So the commission certainly can do that. They can provide that assistance. There's even I think mentioned in there of maybe helping to find some type of funding for the property owner.
Okay,
You can certainly do that. The other cities that I think you're referring to, the demolition permit of a property that's either listed or over 50 years old, or whatever the trigger may be, that permit is a little bit more expensive than a regular demo permit because they have someone that will go and research the property and find out if it's significant during that delay period. So that's what that extra, and they also notice the public or whatever it is that city wants to do with that 300 or whatever that amount is.
Okay, and that's the other issue which we don't have on here, that I think has been my little passion heart set thing, is that this only applies to those buildings that have already been established historical, okay, within the city. It does not apply to other buildings that may be over 45 years or 50 years of age that we haven't, for some reason, gotten to consider whether they have any historical significance.
And that's what really
And that's
brought
what
the subject up.
Right,
That's what the
that's
subject was that
that's
we brought it
what
up last
we
month.
Really,
That's right,
really
Commissioner.
want to do. Now, there's two things that I would like to see adjusted in this thing here I made note. But the main reason I think that we're here, part of that, is that what can we do for those buildings that have not been reviewed or considered for as historical, but say they're 50 years old and they don't come up until we hear that somebody's word of mouth that somebody's getting ready to tear it down. And that's what I would
But
like
I'm
for
glad
those
that
for
we
them to
know
come
what
to
we
us.
can do
Right.
and can't do in designated properties, okay, to give us some guidance as to what we might do for non-designated properties, which was really what we started out looking at, and what this was called to look at.
And that's what I'd like to do. What can we do to get something that would require people who are getting ready to demolish a property, if we establish, or say we say 45 years or 50 years, whatever we want to establish that timeline, that they're getting ready to demolish that property, that they should, and they come to get a permit, but yet they should have to come before us, and we have to be sure that that property has any historical significance whatsoever.
That would go back to the permit process in the building department, would it not?
But-
And once upon a time, years ago, we had this discussion when my ex-wife was mucking around in the city, and Hanson was able to flag, a given date when a permit is applied for, and send it to wherever. I have no idea if that's still so, but wouldn't that be a way to at least alert you in planning that it's a subject to talk about?
Chair Clank, yes, we have that ability, that to flag buildings that are over 50 years old. The only tiny little issue, and it doesn't happen that often, but the Clark County Assessor's Office is not 100% accurate. Like it claims that the railroad cottages were built in 1929 or something like that, and we all know they were built in 1911. So their records only go back as far as that first building permit or certificate of occupancy or whatever. So some of the buildings that we know that are over 45 or 50 years old may not say that in the assessor's office. So there is just that issue, which does not happen that often, but it does happen. But we do have the ability to trigger that. But before any of that those technical changes are put in place, the commission has to decide on what exactly it is they want, because some of those wants may require a code change. And that would be the first thing that we would need to do before any of this is put into place, before any of the logistics are put into place.
Okay, so you're saying we don't need a code change to say that if you're getting ready to knock down a building that's 45 years older or older, that we don't need a code change,
No,
we
you
just
would.
need to put it in our bylaws.
No,
or
yeah.
whatever.
No, you would need a code change. You
Okay,
would, because
that's
it
what
would
I'm asking.
require, it would expand the powers of review to buildings that are not listed on the local historic property
And that's
register.
what we want to, that's what I would like to do. Okay,
What-
and I think some of the other.
And the
people-
argument that the lawyer is going to make when he sues over the taking is that you're telling me what to do with a property that you never bothered to put on the register in the first place, that no owners know that I didn't want in the first place, and you don't have any right to tell me that I can't build something different here than that. So, I mean, we're going to get that argument, and
we're
those kind of
telling-
lawsuits
no,
could come
what
up.
we're going to tell you to do is to give us time to determine if that property that you're getting ready to destroy has any historical value. If we find out that the property has no historical value, go ahead and tear it down. God bless you. Build whatever you want to build.
There are certain policy and legal considerations to any of what it is you want to do here. The policy considerations I can think off the top of my head that Tom may want to speak about, I don't know. When you've got a place that's always changing, always in development mode like Las Vegas, there will be some that will say, wait a second, if I buy a parcel that happens to have a structure that's more than 50 years old, I've got to go through another process before I can submit my zoning plans to the city, and that's fine. I'm just saying that's one consideration. There are legal considerations. The reason why I'll speculate a little bit because I didn't write this, but I have a feeling that the reason why our historic preservation code says that the HPC can deny a demolition and there's a 6-month window for the city and the property owner to find a way to preserve it, and then building officials got to issue that building permit, that demolition permit, is for the reason that Jack brings up. There are going to be questions about whether or not we're taking all economic value away from a parcel of land by instituting some restrictions. If the restriction said, for example, if you have a parcel of property with a structure that is more than 50 years old, before you can submit any development plans, you've got to go to the HBC first and ask. And if they say no, you can't develop your property, we've taken probably all economic value away from that parcel of property. And so we would then have to, we could possibly have to buy the parcel from the person who owns property. So my point is, there's a lot that goes into the potential for these development restrictions that we're going to want to.
And again, I don't see where I'm denying you as the builder to destroy that until, the only thing I'm asking, or the commission would be asking you to do, is tell me it's not historical. And tell me that that building is not historical. If you can prove that, and it isn't, then, I'm saying go ahead. I'm not stopping you from building and making all the money you want to make. I just want to know if it's, as a commission member, I want to know that it's not historical.
Right.
Now, if it turns out that it is historical and over 85% of the building is destroyed and there's no way to preserve that, okay, then again, the commission might say, well, there's nothing we can do. You can go ahead and you can demolish it. And that brings up my second thing. My second thing is something historical sits on a piece of property. And I know we had no control over Riviera and El Rancho and Sahara and all those places that have been torn down and new places have built up. But though there were other hotels that were the first. They were the first, okay? There's no acknowledgement of the fact that you wouldn't even get this property had there not been this hotel that that you're destroying to build a bigger hotel. So why can we not request that you acknowledge the fact that the Thunderbird Hotel sat here first? Even if that's just putting a plaque someplace in your new glorious building.
So
that would be my second thing.
So what I think I heard you say is two things. One,
right.
We need to, you would like to expand our development regulations, require somebody who acquires a parcel that has a structure over 50 years old to come to the city first somehow. We haven't figured that out yet. That's kind of generally what I hear you say. And then secondly, another thing that you're bringing up is we really need a condition, a standard condition, that if you do. Once you come in with your building, the structure's over 50 years old, and then it's given, and then the city approves the demolition permit, there at least needs to be a condition of approval of that permit that there's
some sort of recognition.
Some sort of recognition of what was on that site at some time. Okay, so those are two things.
Those two things. Those are my two things.
Okay, I wanted to make sure it was clear in my mind.
You got it clear in your mind, honey. Yes, you
And we run into the problem of what we establish here probably isn't going to get changed for 10 more years, 15 more years, 20 more years. And, 20 years from now is 2037, a 1987 house or building, which I can't imagine having any historic significance whatsoever unless, the next president of the United States gets born there, or something.
The plaque will
having a
still
story.
remain, Jack, because there's always only one first. There's only one first. There's
Right.
never 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first. There's always only
Right.
one first. So, the Thunderbird Hotel, in essence, and I'm just using this because we can't do anything, was the first. Now, I don't even know what the heck stands there now. Okay, but there's another hotel, but nobody, no one, but 100 years from now, even if they tear down that building in 87, they should have to replace that plaque to indicate that originally the Thunderbird Hotel sat here, and that's why you can build your hotel here. Because along with a lot of land at that time, gaming licenses went too when you purchased that property. So, I mean, this is why you can build 50 million thousand different hotels in the year 3040.
Right.
Okay, but they're on that hotel in 3040. There's still going to be a plaque that said, this is the original site of the Thunderbird Hotel.
I agree with that, and I would like for us to be able to put that kind of, at the minimum, the option to put that kind of thing on to run, that runs with the land and runs with the deed.
Right.
So pursuant to our code right now, if someone came, remember, we're limited to local designation law, but someone came to ask for a demolition permit for a locally designated historic property, you have the power to require that as a condition of the demolition right now.
We have that.
Oh,
For something that's on.
And then someone like Tom would probably make sure that follows through the planning commission and city council when the design applications come in, just so it's all tied up.
Yeah.
Some sort of condition.
So in
And-
essence, if they tear down, say they're going to tear down the Las Vegas Club or something, if they tear that down to build a new hotel, which, okay, then we can automatically say with those plans that you include this plaque that this was the original space of whatever hotel was there first.
If Las Vegas Club was on the local
Right.
register,
Currently as that
See,
states.
and that's where we go back to.
then they would come here first for the
Right.
demolition permit.
Right.
It's not.
Okay. That's
So
what
they
I'm
wouldn't.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Golden Gate, is it on the local
No.
register?
See, there's
The
the
only
Golden Gate.
casino that is on any register is the El Cortez,
And it's
But
on the
that's just
national-
and that's on the national
And that,
register.
and that was the first
Okay, so that's
first
not.
hotel. So
So the answer to your question about the Las Vegas Club is no. But if somebody went to the planning commission and city council and said, hey, we're tearing down a historic structure here, it was built in whatever, you could make the pitch that there ought to be some sort of remembrance
But
of what was here before.
couldn't they obtain a permit after that 60-day period or whatever? Well, no, they don't even have to do that, if I understand the city process right now. They could tear it down and with their demo permit and then come to us with as part of the planning, well, not even
Well,
that.
then-
I guess they could just go through planning commission.
Right now, they don't have to come in because they're not part of the
So-
local registry, is that right?
non-historic.
I'd like to go back to something Jack said, and I understand Las Vegas is a developer-driven community, and developers have a significant weight in this community. Just went through a process in Sacramento where a building over 50 years old, not on any register or anything else, before a demolition permit was issued, had to go through and prove a lack of historic significance.
That's what I've been asking.
So there, I think, I don't know about Nevada, but lawyers certainly are abundant in California. If they can do it there, why can't we do it here?
Well, that's-
Other than the will to do it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
It's not on our code. We don't have a code for
Yeah,
that.
and
So
the
that
question is then do we need to do the research to prove to the owner that there is historic
No.
significance, or
It's part of the due diligence before you buy that chunk of property. It's up to the real estate people and the developer, if it is a known commodity, that if you have a building over 50 years old in the real estate community, before you go to that broker or as part of that broker's responsibility, they say, hey, you've got a building, it's 70 years old, you need to look at it. That's just like saying, doing a phase one environmental.
right.
There's really
So
no
is it the
difference.
person that's applying for the demolition, which I had mentioned earlier, it's for, he either pays for that research, or either we have to pay for that research?
No reason we should have to pay for it.
I'm just saying, that's,
Yeah.
those are your alternatives, I mean.
No, it's part
But
of
we
the
don't
burden-
even have that
the burden
code
of-
yet, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and so maybe if I understand some of the discussion, what we're asking is indeed a change to Title 19.
Yes, correct.
How do we do that?
Well,
Everyone's looking at you, Tom.
Listen, Tom,
Great. This, so far, just sitting back and listening, this has been a good conversation because we're starting to narrow down to what it is that we want to consider proposing as policy. I'm not sure when to get there in just one meeting, because what I also heard was we really have to think carefully about the scope, because every single year we add thousands of properties to the list of properties that are 50 years old or older, right? And as we move forward, that's going to really start to accelerate. So is the first stucco box built by KB Homes significant? I don't know, maybe not. Huh?
Not yet.
But we might be getting close to the first stucco box with pink tile roofs,
Well, Green Valley.
But the first house in Green Valley is only
First house
10
in
years
Green
away
Valley,
now.
maybe the first house built in Summerlin and that kind of stuff, and all that's coming our way. But then all of a sudden there's going to be tens of thousands of new properties that are within that 50 years every single year.
I think there has to be like a deadline of 50 years older.
but it has to
No
have
later than-
historical value. And I
let's-
think
Well,
we have to
then
determine what the historical
1970
value
or-
is.
A 1970 cap on that, or a 1980 cap on that, or
Something that beyond that point, we just know that the chances of something really being that significant.
Okay,
start
so
to
then
diminish
what we need to do
dramatically.
is establish what we consider historical value.
yeah. So I-
But we've already got that, do we not?
A year, and some cities choose to go anything that's over 50 years old or whatever their cutoff is, and then some say anything before 1950 or whatever. So that committees, cities go both ways.
But I'm saying from what Tom just said, that, any property over 50 years old. So some box that sat on a piece of land, I'm just talking crazy off the top of my head, that turns out to be 50 years old and they want to develop this land, so they want to demolish that box. But it really doesn't have historical value, okay? But they have to determine that it has no historical value, right? So they can destroy
Well,
it.
I mean, I
But
guess
you're
what
trying
we're
to
doing
you're
is
saying
proving a
put
negative there, and-
You're trying to put a line on. We're trying to put a line on what's historical.
What I'm trying to do is get the scope narrowed and get some real clarity around the policy that you
Of
would
what's
like.
historical.
Right, and then what we would do is have a conversation with the seventh floor, and you have to find a sponsor, and there's a lot of steps to get a text amendment through the city council. So it takes a little bit, but I think the first step is the conversation is driving, in my opinion, right in the right direction, where you're starting to really get down to, here is exactly the issue we're trying to address, and then we start talking about how that might be accomplished. Like, for example, if there are things, if there's some sort of review and how that's reviewed and who has the authority to determine whether or not it's something significant and what's the scope of things that we want to even look at. And then if that can be crafted in such a way that it doesn't really affect typical development timelines, I mean, you might really have some momentum there, right? But as you know, or maybe not everybody's fully familiar with the process, but what we deal with in planning all the time is, we've got state statute, we've got local code, but we've got the developers who have all these things going on with their property, right, in terms of whether or not they'll be able to sell it, the financing, all that stuff is wrapped up in their entitlements under some very tight timelines. Their entitlements, right? And so when you start monkeying with that, with new policies, we have to be very careful and very, very clear what is the public purpose and why do we need to do this. So that's all I'm suggesting is we got to keep this conversation going the way it's going and really try to get to a very clear understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and what's the way we can do that has at least impact on the way things are currently done.
And I guess that's what I'm.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to take the ultra conservative, but looking down the road in terms of getting some success here and getting some support for a change to the code, I think that's kind of what we need to be thinking about.
Certainly agree with you, Tom. I guess one thing I would ask, and I apologize to you beforehand, is would we get support from the planning department for a change to Title 19 in this area? You know, if you, as a department, not you personally, but as a department won't support it, we're all wasting our time.
We typically don't take a position on a code change. It's a policy issue that comes from an appointed board or an elected board, and that's why that sponsorship is so important. If this committee takes action on a request for a policy change, a change to Title 19, which is a policy change, then it just goes through the process. I'm trying to think of when we have actually, we'll sponsor things when it's just to fix an error or something like that. But when it's a policy change, we really don't take a position. That's up to the
So you
makers.
just basically remain neutral and not offer an opinion?
Yeah. Unless you propose something that just simply is contrary to state law, something really crazy. We say, look, we can't do that. We have to take a position. But if it's a question of policy that's within state law, it's within the municipal code, we don't typically take a position on something.
Question to back that up then. Like you had said before, as long as it doesn't interfere with the developer's timelines. So then you would give us information if we're doing something, you would say, well, have you considered a consideration on certain things? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like what you spoke earlier, you said, you have to consider developers' timelines and understand where you're going. So would your office be doing that for us?
Yeah,
in
I think
essence?
it sounds like where we're going to get to today, we'll have enough information for Courtney to go back, do a little more research, and maybe present you with some alternatives on how what it is you want to accomplish would look in the form of potential code change, right? And then you can say, yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking, and here are the pros and cons to these different approaches and that sort of thing. So, yeah, well, absolutely, that's our role. And please, I don't mean to suggest that this committee needs to stay within some certain time frame based on developer demands. I'm just sort of throwing out there, for example,
Yeah, it's
there may
for
be ways
consideration
for
of that, and I
happen.
understand that. Yeah, I understand that. That's something we have to think about.
Tom, the support from the planning department, could it possibly come through the new downtown plan, the Founders District, to implement some of the vision and direction in the plan, that the planning department could maybe not be so just completely neutral on it?
Yeah, it's unlikely we take a formal position, but we would certainly make a presentation that would, and again, I think that's an excellent point, and that's something that should come.
But I'm not trying to push you down a trail.
No, I get it.
I'm just trying to think of a way that it's just not us, so to speak.
As part of your deliberation and your findings as to why you're making this recommendation, that would absolutely be in there, and planning will present it absolutely accordingly. And I would imagine that somebody from the commission would also be there to make the presentation at planning commission and at the recommending committee.
Because I think we get more traction that way if we link it to something policy-wise that's going through the system right now and piggyback onto it, so to speak, to make it better, or rather than just coming out from the blue, you know, there's this preservationist trying to stop development or something. No, we're not. We're in sync with the new plan, and we're trying to bring an implementation tool for the new plan.
Well, maybe it would be helpful if we just really quickly went through the process of how something might occur, right? So, go ahead.
If I may just
Sorry.
jump in really quickly, the clerk's office needs this meeting to wrap up in about 7 minutes because they need the room to be able to set up for the next meeting. So I just want to make sure that I get direction from this ad hoc committee on what direction you guys want to go. Like, you know, I want to narrow down the goals and the scope so that I know what to come back with at the next meeting. And then we'll probably be holding it in abeyance, I'm guessing, until the next meeting. Any formal recommendations?
I would just have another meeting.
Do I need to make a motion for this,
Well-
or can we just give you the list of what we're?
I think that would be fine. And
The
Jim, if you
non-historic
wanted
buildings
to,
over 50 years, policy change, I guess that's Title 19. Is that what that is?
Code change.
Code change, Title 19. Not the non-historic buildings. Is 50 years an appropriate timeline for everybody? We all agree with 50 years.
Well, 50 years is kind of the standardized norm, but that's a floating 50 years. Every year, another whole world adds on to it. I think there needs to be a cap in there that, you know, a 1970 cap, buildings before 1970.
So she can
And
look
even
for
20
to
years from
review a
now, it's
cap.
still 1970.
Maybe,
Review a cap.
maybe what we do is
With
we
cap.
ask staff to research and
Okay.
provide processes from other communities, how they do it.
Or with the cap, or we can put, because I'm thinking you'll do that with the cap, like he said.
But
Review a
not
cap
just-
timeline, cap
Not
timeline.
just the cap, though.
Right.
Yeah, like,
What I'm
You
hearing
know,
is that
why
some
do we
options
need
around
to
what is the
reinvent it?
universe of properties that we really want to take a look at, right?
Mhm.
Right.
I can do that too.
And I think that really runs out in 1970.
Okay.
It
Is
really
that,
does.
is that enough, Courtney, for you to kind of come back with some ideas? Is
Yeah.
it 1970? Is it in certain areas? Is it, what is that? What does that look like?
Go ahead, Stuart.
and that's all in the backup, actually, all of these different options from other cities and how they do it.
Okay.
So it really needs to come, you can do whatever, you can suggest whatever it is that you would like to suggest because
Well, Courtney,
it's so customizable.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
but
please.
If you put the time limit on us, maybe just come back with what you think are the 2 or 3 options that make the most sense for our city
Okay,
in terms of limiting the scope, and they can talk about it, and the commission committee can kind of give further direction or make a choice.
okay.
and
Yeah, that way-
frankly, we can come up with whatever we want,
Mhm.
but guys like Jim over here will say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Right.
And the historic plaque, because we talked about that. And the other thing that, real quick, I didn't get to talk about was if we need to put it in here, when the timeline starts for the 60 days,
Right.
okay? And if we want to leave it at 60 or change it to 90, that might be something that, you know, you might want to put on there. And, what was it? The start of 60 days, timeline starts, okay, local. I think that was, does
Okay.
anybody remember anything else that we had?
More staff for the HPO officer to be able to do these kind of research things and research the individual properties when a permit gets put in there. You can put that on
Yeah.
everywhere we can allow it,
Yeah,
that's fine.
somebody to specifically, yeah.
So,
Okay.
based on this conversation also, I think we got a pretty good idea of what,
There's no action being taken.
what the committee would like to see. So maybe, Courtney, we narrow down also 2 or 3 options on how properties within that scope would be reviewed prior to a demolition permit, right? That aren't currently under Title 19.
So, yeah, so we have 2 different categories. We have what's already meant in the title, in the laws, and
The local
and how we do it, and do we want to change our bylaws or change that to give a different timeline than the 60-day or 6 month or whatever. And then over here on how do we deal with the other properties that aren't in that.
That aren't listed.
Okay, and what we view, we're gonna look at for them, and some timelines and guidelines that we're not tying developers up needlessly, and you know, you know, and accept that it's maybe an architecturally significant building. What we want is really recognition of this is where a famous person lives, or this is,
This
you know,
was the
a
first.
significant event that happened on this location. We want a recognition of that. Doesn't mean we can't tear the building down and
Right.
still recognize that this is where it
Exactly,
happened.
yeah.
You know, this place matters, but this building wasn't really an pertinent part of that. But if it's an architecturally important building, or, you know, in Fremont Street again, the hotels,
It's
the
the
motels, the
land.
remaining motels
Yeah.
along Fremont Street,
Whatever
which
goes
should be
in.
a district, and, you know, and then it also leads us back to, you know, pursuing getting people to apply for designation so that we expand the, you know, the first category.
Do we're gonna have to go to another meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to have another meeting
Well,
next
let's,
month,
if we
right?
want to talk about another meeting, we should go to five, we should have you read 5 then, and then talk about the next meeting.
Okay. All right, so, discussion regarding topics for future meeting agenda items by the committee. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion shall be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the committee, and or whether the proposed item shall be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. So that's number 5. So in light of that, we want to come back again to discuss changes to the development code and or bylaws of the HPC as it regards buildings already in the designation that are already designated, things that are already designated, and we want to discuss again an expansion of the review process of buildings that aren't, or whatever, that aren't in the code, aren't designated already.
Right.
And I think the third thing we'd really like to do is just try to set a parameter of when that process stops happening and not be on the sliding scale of every year it's 50 years back, you know.
And the next meeting, you would
The
suggest would
historic
be
plaque
the
in the
4th of
60
next
to
week,
90
which should be
days.
a month from now.
Is everybody, I would propose that also. That's actually a very good time for me. I don't know if it is.
What's
for
that?
everybody else.
What was
To do
that?
like 10:30 like we did today, if we're gonna be
Yes,
doing it anyway.
but did you include that when the timeline starts?
Yes.
And our bylaws already, and the change of 60 to
Right.
90, and the historic plaque? Did you say all of
I
that?
didn't say historic plaque.
Okay,
Listen,
good.
we're adding
We need to add
historic.
that. Yeah,
All right.
I'm happy. I got everything.
And what we will commit to, Courtney and I'm adding I because I'm making a commitment, is
Raise your right hand.
we'll have, there's a very good discussion, we got, at least I feel pretty comfortable that we have an understanding of what this committee's thoughts are, so we'll come back with some options for you that are actionable, with some clarity around those, so you can present those then to the full committee and move this thing down the road as opposed to just talking about it endlessly, so. Hopefully we can have a wrap after next meeting, but then again, based on deliberation of the full commission, they may come back, who knows, but anyway, that's our commitment, we'll bring it back, something you can act on moving forward.
Number 6.
Oh, well, still in number 5, I think then by next week, we should try to create a motion to take to present to the full committee, the full commission.
I think a motion that we present our thoughts that we viewed today to full commission.
Right, after the next meeting.
After what meeting? After this meeting. We have to present these thoughts to the full commission, and then the next meeting, we have to present.
That doesn't
thoughts.
need a motion.
We does?
It's
Okay.
already done.
Thank you.
Okay.
we're good.
Good. All right, so then number 6, citizen participation. Public comment during the portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. No subject may be acted upon by the board members unless the subject of the agenda is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, give your name and the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time a single speaker is allowed, may be limited.
Faster.
Anybody? All right, I think there should be an abbreviated, like 5 words, public discussion. Nobody's here?
Adjourned.
It's done. Okay, number 7, adjournment. I call me adjourned.